Hey, it's Matt Moscona. You found it. It's AFR Saints, your home for daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Please subscribe, smash the like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And our content this football season is presented by BetUS. Score a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000 when you use the promo code YouTube150. Enjoy the video. Who dat? Story of the day that everybody's following in the sports world. All-pro wide receiver Davante Adams looked like he wants out of Las Vegas and has two preferred destinations: the Jets with Aaron Rodgers and your New Orleans Saints, where he would reunite with Derek Carr. Ross Jackson, Locked on Saints, and of course our guy over at LouisianaSports.net. It's been all over it. He joins us now. How are you, man?
Hey, buddy. Doing great. Glad to be here with you.
Let's start with what we know as of right now. How interested does it appear Davante Adams really is in New Orleans, and is there reciprocation?
Yeah, it seems very much that the interest for Davante Adams in New Orleans is there. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting that the New Orleans Saints and the New York Jets were the highest teams on his wish list, which makes sense because of the connective tissue here in New Orleans. A lot of people will talk about Derek Carr and the connection there from their time at Fresno State together, as well as with the Raiders. But then, of course, there's Keith Williams, the wide receivers coach, who plays a big role in Davante Adams, not only profession but life as a whole. So there's the connective tissue there, and I think that acknowledging that connective tissue and understanding that just a few days ago, head coach Dennis Allen was just saying that the team needs somebody outside of Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill to come in and be able, or step up rather, and be able to make plays. I don't think that player necessarily has to be somebody within the building. They could potentially reach outside the facility, and Davante Adams would certainly check all those boxes. So I would imagine that would generate interest from New Orleans, in addition to the relationships that are already established within the building.
Okay, let's talk about feasibility of a deal if the Saints were interested. Reportedly, the Raiders would want a second-round pick and other considerations. Any idea what other considerations means?
Yeah, I think if you look at wide receiver trades around the NFL over the past couple of years, a pretty common comp for or amount of trade value, trade capital move there is typically a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick. You look at the Stephon Diggs trade when the Buffalo Bills sent him to Houston. Second-round pick, fifth-round pick from the same year, and then a sixth-round pick for the following year. And so that's a pretty typical sort of a piece. So I think the additional sort of piece that might mean that there's other considerations beyond just that second-round pick, which could be other draft capital, could be players that are involved in the trade as well. But I don't think that it's anything that's outside of what the New Orleans Saints would be able to provide. And typically these trades nowadays in the NFL happen with draft capital moving to one team in exchange for a player.
Hey, we'll get right back to the video. Thrilled to tell you about our friends over at BetUS, a great partner of ours here on AFR Saints all throughout this football season. Been telling you about the great offer right now. 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two deposits, up to $2,000. Why wouldn't you take advantage of this if you're sports betting? And of course, it's way more fun when you are. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150. Let me show you just how easy it is to use BetUS. You go to BetUS, you hit the football tab, NFL Week 5. We're going to scroll down. We know Monday Night Football will be the last game of the weekend. There it is, Saints Chiefs. Can't say that I love New Orleans prime time in Arrowhead. Maybe I'll lay the 5 with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll come over here to our bet slip. How much do we want to wager? Let's go $25. You place your bet. It's going to ask you to confirm, which we'll do right here. And there is my confirmation bet slip. We are in. Here's hoping I'm dead wrong. Y'all can all laugh at me next week, but make sure you're taking advantage of our friends at BetUS having this great offer. 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your next two deposits, up to $2,000. Make sure you use the promo code YouTube150. Thanks so much for watching. Now enjoy the rest of the video. Let's talk about about the contract. So let's say they are able to work out compensation for Davante Adams, picks, players, whatever. What does that mean for New Orleans financially?
Yeah, so this is the other part where the additional considerations might end up being a larger part of the conversation. is that, look, New Orleans has about $3.26 million of salary cap left at this moment in terms of open salary cap. And Davante Adams is due a little bit over $13 million, we'll just say for the ease of simplicity. That changes as more game checks get paid out and things like that. These players are paid out on a weekly basis. So the later in the season that you trade for a player, the quote-unquote cheaper they become because their contract effectively prorates. It's like moving into an apartment in mid-month as opposed to at the beginning of a month. And so that's the way that this kind of contract will end up being impacted the longer that it takes for a trade to happen. And the minimum of what that's going to look like is just over $8 million, which would be after that, which would be at the trade deadline. So the sooner he gets traded, the more expensive he is. The later he gets traded, the cheaper it becomes. But in either case, the Saints don't have enough, right, in terms of getting him in under their salary cap. So what they would probably have to do is work with the Raiders of getting, to get the Raiders maybe to eat a little bit of that salary, and then maybe even, as a part of the trade, rework or restructure his contract to get him in under the salary cap. The Saints could also help themselves out by giving Alvin Kamara his extension, which I think is something we all believe that he deserves, because in the midst of that extension, they could also knock some of his 2024 base salary down, which would give them a little bit more salary cap space as well. So the Saints can do it salary cap wise. They just might need a little bit of help and might need to do a little bit of work elsewhere in order to make it happen.
So Ross Jackson's our guest, Locked on Saints podcast. Of course, make sure you're subscribed there. And he leads our Saints coverage over at LouisianaSports.net. There's also the question of the future of the contract. So he's got $44 million on the books for 2025 and 2026. That's a gigantic number. How do the Saints make that make sense?
Yeah, so some of that travels with him, some of that doesn't. Some of that's money that's already been paid out by Las Vegas, and that's just kind of prorated. Some of that's workout bonuses and things like that. But the good news for New Orleans or any team that would be acquiring Davante Adams is that the wealth of that contract, $35.6 million next year, $36.6 million in 2026, non-guaranteed base salary. So when they reworked the contract, they could actually knock down those numbers as far as zero if they wanted to. But, as you're restructuring, you're pushing money into future years and things like that. So what the Saints could do, in theory, is rework the contract if they were to acquire him, knock those 2025, 2026 numbers way down, or just adjust them in such a way to where he gets some guaranteed money in 2025. And the reason why that could be important if you're restructuring in 2024 is if you're going to move a second-round pick and additional draft picks or additional considerations, as it were, you probably don't want it to just be a one-year rental. And you have Derek Carr for at least one more year here. And so keeping Derek Carr and Davante Adams together for 2 seasons might be a good idea for you if you're the New Orleans Saints. So there's some easier ways to maneuver the future money than there are ways to maneuver the present money. But that one looks like big, scary numbers, but way more manageable once you kind of dig into it and see that those numbers are majority non-guaranteed.
Okay. Does it make sense for an aging roster to give up future assets, which would, by definition, make you younger, draft capital, for a receiver who's nearing 32 years old?
Yeah, I think it depends on what's more important to you as an organization. Is it more important to you to put yourself in the best position to win now, or is it more important to you to hold on to draft capital that you can invest next year that will hopefully pan out for you within the next 4 or 5 years, right? Because that's really the thing that we're talking about here. If you're the New Orleans Saints and you make a trade like this, it's because you believe that you are a Davante Adams away from being a competitor in the NFL. Now, 99% of the population could turn around and feel the other way, that might not be the case. But all that matters is how Mickey Loomis, Dennis Allen, Gail Benson, and the New Orleans Saints organization feels. If they feel that that's the case, then that's the route that they go. And then it just becomes what's more important. Are you trying to compete now? Are you trying to win games now? Are you trying to potentially save your job now? Are you trying to save your season now? Or are you more worried about what a 2nd and 5th round pick might look like 4 years from now? I think that as of considering that there's a 3-year playoff drought and considering that no one's future is guaranteed in the NFL, I would imagine that the former, winning now, is more important to this organization than the latter of how a draft pick might pan out in 4 to 5 years from now.
I think it's abundantly clear by the Saints' behavior as an organization. They are in perpetual win now mode.
Yep, absolutely right.
Do you think the Saints are a Davante Adams away from being a contender?
I think that just about any team in the NFL is a superstar away from being a contender. I believe that about any NFL team for the majority of the cases. I don't know that I believe that about the Patriots. I don't know that I believe that about the Jaguars.
What about the Raiders?
The Raiders are instead, they're on the other side of that conversation. They are a superstar away from rebuilding their organization is really kind of like their viewpoint. Okay. And so, or their vantage point. And so I think most teams in the NFL that see themselves as contenders are a superstar away from being a contender. And so if Davante Adams can show up to a team and be that superstar level player or high level star player that's needed, then yeah, I think that he could help you become a contender. Do I think that if the Saints land Davante Adams, that they are a Super Bowl champion caliber team? No, but I don't think that that's necessarily what you're looking for if you're New Orleans either. You're trying to get back to the playoffs and then see if you can take advantage of that opportunity. What I do believe is that if Davante Adams shows up in New Orleans, they are a team based on what their new offensive system has looked like, that if they can get out of their own way and out of Davante Adams, then they are a playoff team, or at least a playoff caliber team when it comes to the talent on their roster if they can stay healthy.
Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, and make sure you read Ross's stuff with us over at LouisianaSports.net. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you, bud. Take care. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for watching the video. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified when we post a new video, and remember to support BetUS, where right now you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150.